There comes a point in every man's journey when he looks up from the chaos of his circumstances, and something inside him whispers, "You're behind." It doesn't come with ceremony or warning. It creeps in like a silent fog in the middle of the night. It wraps itself around your plans, your aspirations, and your confidence. You watch others pass you by, celebrate milestones you haven't reached, achieve goals you once dreamed of, and something inside you feels the sharp sting of being left behind. But here lies the truth that separates the broken from the unbreakable. Falling behind is only fatal to the man who chooses regret over recognition. The first law of transformation is brutal honesty. You must take off the mask not for the world but for yourself. You must stand in front of your own reality and say, "This is where I am. This is what I did. This is what I didn't do." There is no strength in denial, only delay. No man can conquer what he refuses to confront. And yet, once you confront it, once you tear the veil of excuses and replace it with raw truth, you have already taken the most powerful step forward. You are no longer running from your delay. You are now pursuing your destiny. Regret is seductive. It invites you to relive every moment you fell short, every opportunity you ignored, every hour you wasted. But what regret never tells you is that it offers no progress. It is a treadmill for the mind, a constant running motion with no destination. The man who chooses to dwell in regret is choosing to walk backward while pretending to move forward. If you feel behind in life, you must divorce regret and marry recognition. You must replace the question, "Why did I let this happen?" with "What can I do now?" Do not allow society's timeline to govern your soul. Every man walks his path with different burdens, different lessons, and different awakenings. You may have started late. You may have stumbled while others soared. But if you stand here today, conscious of your position and determined to act, you possess more power than you realize. A man awakened to his own stagnation is far more dangerous than a man coasting on borrowed momentum. You are not too late. You are right on time for the version of you that refuses to settle. Great empires were built on the backs of men who decided to start where they were, with what they had, against what they felt. You must adopt the same spirit. Life does not reward the man who starts first. It rewards the man who refuses to quit. You may feel behind, but if you're breathing, thinking, and able to choose a new action today, you are not defeated. You are developing, and every great development requires a moment of stillness followed by a surge of decision. Decide that this feeling of being behind is your trigger, not your tombstone. Decide that you will no longer allow your past to dictate your pace. Every second spent in guilt is a second stolen from growth. Burn your guilt. Light your fire. Tell yourself with full conviction, "I am not what I missed. I am what I choose next." That's where catching up begins. Not with a strategy, not with a plan, but with a mindset that says, "This is not the end of me. This is the ignition of me." The most dangerous lie you'll ever believe is that you're too far behind to make it. That lie has buried more dreams than failure ever could. You are never too far back to take the lead. You are never too late to create a miracle. You are never too stuck to rise. The man who catches up is not the one who runs the fastest. It is the one who refuses to sit still while his soul screams for more. Every person you compare yourself to has had their own moment of falling behind. Every success story you admire once stood where you stand, broken, confused, overwhelmed, and tempted to give up. But they made one decision that changed everything. They refused to make their delay permanent. They refused to make their detour their destination. They used the pain of being behind as a compass, not a coffin. And so can you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need 1 million followers or a head start. You need one thing: decision. Decision backed by relentless action. Decision driven by inner fire. Decision carved from the belief that no matter how long you've wandered, you still have the power to arrive. Look at your life right now, not with judgment but with clarity. Strip it down to its parts. What have you ignored? What have you avoided? What truth have you been too afraid to accept? The man who catches up is not the one who sugarcoats his reality. He's the one who swallows it, stares it in the face, and says, "I will rise anyway." If you feel behind financially, emotionally, spiritually, or in your relationships, it doesn't matter. What matters is your next thought. What matters is your next decision. Because once you decide that defeat is temporary, then you are already on the comeback trail. You are already moving. You are already different from the man who let time rob him of his fight. Life responds to resolve. It bends for the man who refuses to be denied. But that resolve must come from within. Not from comparison, not from fear, but from a raw internal command that says, "I will catch up. I will rise. I will own every part of this journey, including the parts I once abandoned." This fire within you must be reignited, not with fantasy, but with force, the force of your will, the force of your purpose, the force of your refusal to accept a version of life that is less than what you know you're capable of. No man can hand you that power. It must be seized, and you seize it not when the world tells you you're worthy, but when you decide you are, despite what the world sees. You are not your delay. You are not your mistakes. You are not the years you wasted, the chances you missed, or the time you let slip through your fingers. You are potential, pressed under pressure, waiting to explode, and you can explode in the direction of your purpose if you silence the noise and amplify your decision. Catch up by beginning now, not tomorrow, not next week, now. In this breath, in this decision, in this moment where you say, "I am done being behind because I am no longer willing to watch my life unfold without my leadership." You are not late. You are just early in your transformation. The race is not over. The clock is not your enemy. Time bends to those who walk with urgency. Make no mistake. The man who refuses to bow to defeat is the man who becomes unstoppable. And the man who becomes unstoppable does not wait for permission to begin again. He begins now with eyes open, shoulders back, and a heart that roars louder than his excuses, because he knows the truth. Being behind in life is not a punishment. It is a call to rise with more fire than ever before. When a man feels behind in life, his first instinct is to look at the long road ahead and panic. He sees the distance between where he is and where he believes he should be, and that chasm becomes a burden on his mind. He tries to win the year in a day, to skip steps and climb mountains in one bound, and in that rush he loses power. The error is simple, trying to conquer the future before mastering the present. The man who learns how to win the next hour will own the next decade. The secret to catching up is not in speed. It is in focus, precision, and discipline. Discipline is the bridge between despair and domination. It is the quiet voice that commands your feet when your emotions have surrendered. It is the inner contract you sign when no one is watching and everyone else is sleeping. When you feel behind in life, the loudest question screaming in your head is, "How can I catch up fast?" But this is the wrong question. The right question is, "What can I master right now?" The race is not to the swift, but to the steady. And the steady man does not waste energy trying to jump years ahead. He multiplies minutes by mastering them. You don't need to win the year today. You need to win the next hour. Win it by making a call you've been avoiding. Win it by saying no to the next distraction. Win it by reading the chapter you skipped, by writing the words you've postponed, by choosing the pain of discipline over the comfort of delay. When you collect enough victories in small units of time, momentum builds. And momentum is the ally of the man who wants to catch up. The man who wins consistently has trained his mind to respect the moment. He has tamed the beast of overwhelm with the sword of structure. He does not try to fix everything at once. He fixes what's in front of him with such intensity that everything else begins to shift in response. This is how the man who was once behind becomes the one others chase. He turns time into a servant by giving it direction. There are people ahead of you with less talent, fewer skills, and smaller visions, but they made one choice you haven't made yet. They chose discipline when it hurt. They chose repetition when it was boring. They chose execution over emotion. Discipline is not glorious. It is not loud. It is not romantic. It is raw. It is hard. But it is also the most powerful engine you can possess when the distance seems too far. It does not matter how far back you've fallen. What matters is how consistent you are in rising. A man who applies focused discipline for 30 days can outrun a man who has coasted for 5 years. Consistency compounds. Effort expands, attention transforms, and all of it begins by choosing to win the next hour like your entire future depends on it. Because it does. Do not underestimate the power of compounded discipline. You may feel small now, but if you stack days with ruthless intent, your life will grow beyond recognition. You don't need miracles, you need minutes mastered. You don't need a different calendar, you need a different mindset. Begin to see every hour as a seed. What you plant in it will determine the harvest of your life. If you waste it, you decay. If you invest it, you rise. Discipline is not just about action. It's about identity. The man who feels behind often doesn't just lack results. He's lost belief in himself. He no longer sees himself as someone who wins. But when you win 1 hour, you give your identity something to hold. That hour becomes evidence. Evidence becomes belief. Belief becomes identity. And identity fuels every future decision. This is how discipline reshapes destiny. And when the weight of feeling behind becomes unbearable, when anxiety, frustration, and comparison threaten to crush your mind, you must learn the second law. Use the pressure, don't let it use you. That pressure you feel right now, that invisible force pressing on your chest when you scroll through achievements that aren't yours yet, is not there to destroy you. It is there to direct you. Pain can break you or build you. The outcome depends on how you process the pressure. Most men run from pressure. They distract themselves. They numb it. They try to silence it with temporary pleasure or external validation. But pressure is not the enemy. It is the invitation to rise. The difference between the man who collapses under the weight of being behind and the one who surges forward is not strength. It's strategy. The winning man learns to convert pressure into power. When you feel the fire of being behind, do not smother it. Use it to forge something greater. Turn it into fuel. Let it remind you that you were made for more. Let it push you to act faster, think sharper, focus harder. Let it become the voice in your head that says, enough, it's time to build. Pressure is a tool. When you embrace it, it sharpens you. When you resist it, it suffocates you. Every great achievement was born under pressure. Diamonds are created under it. Muscles are grown through it. Leaders are revealed by it. The most unstoppable men in the world did not escape pressure. They learned to perform under it. If you want to catch up in life, you must transform pressure into purpose. You must stare into the heat and declare, this will not crush me. It will create me. What others call pressure, you must call opportunity. You must use the feeling of being behind as leverage. Leverage to wake up earlier. Leverage to train harder. Leverage to cut off distractions and dead weight. Leverage to stop caring about being liked and start focusing on being legendary. The pressure you feel is the proof that your soul is waking up. Let it guide you. No man escapes pressure, but few rise through it. The key is not to wish it away, but to convert it. The furnace is meant to mold you. Let it expose your weakness so you can strengthen it. Let it break your ego so you can build character. Let it strip you of excuses so you can finally see what you're made of. When the pressure mounts, that is the moment to push forward, not to retreat. That is the test. And every test passed builds your capacity to rise. This world is not built for the soft-hearted or the slow-moving. It is built for those who take the sting of pressure and turn it into purpose. The man who feels behind but refuses to bow to pressure becomes a force of nature. He learns to perform not in peace but in chaos, not in comfort but in challenge. He becomes immune to distraction because pressure has taught him what truly matters. And perhaps most important, pressure clears your vision. When life tightens, you begin to see with new eyes. You no longer chase vanity. You pursue legacy. You stop comparing yourself to timelines and start creating your own. You stop chasing what impresses others and start building what fulfills you. Pressure, properly understood, becomes the path to clarity. And clarity is the currency of the man who wants to catch up and never fall behind again. So when you feel like you're running out of time, when you feel overwhelmed by the distance between you and your dreams, remember this: distance doesn't matter to the man who has direction, and direction, forged through discipline and pressure, will make up for any lost ground. Focus on the hour in front of you, not the years behind you. Embrace the pressure as your personal coach, not your curse, because the moment you stop fearing it and start using it, you step into the version of yourself that was never behind, only becoming ready for the fight ahead. When a man feels behind in life, his natural instinct is to explain. He starts crafting a story, a justification, a string of carefully constructed reasons why things turned out the way they did. He blames his environment, his upbringing, his friends, the economy, or the people who didn't believe in him. And as he stacks these excuses, he unknowingly builds the very prison that holds him in place. Excuses are not explanations. They are shackles. They rob a man of his power, his responsibility, and ultimately his destiny. The only way to light the path forward is to set those excuses on fire and never return to them again. Excuses feel comfortable. They offer an illusion of safety. They allow a man to sit still and still feel justified. But what they do not offer is progress. No man has ever advanced by blaming his conditions. No empire was ever built on reasons why it couldn't be done. The difference between those who rise and those who remain behind lies in a single truth. One group clings to excuses, the other clings to responsibility. And when you choose responsibility, you reclaim your power. To catch up in life, you must eliminate every phrase that begins with "I would have, but." You must cut it from your vocabulary like poison. Because every time you excuse your delay, you reinforce your limitations. You are not a victim of your circumstances. You are the author of your actions. Excuses whisper lies that sound like truth. They tell you that you can't start because you're too late, too old, too inexperienced, too tired. But greatness has never bowed to those lies. It is carved from resistance. It is earned by the man who says, "Even if it wasn't my fault, it is still my fight." The man who burns his excuses lights a fire that cannot be extinguished. That fire is made of accountability, hunger, and rage, not against others, but against his own wasted time, and that fire will fuel him through dark seasons. It will silence the voices that say he's not ready. It will drown out the noise of failure, because once a man decides to stop explaining and start executing, he becomes a force that cannot be reasoned with, delayed, or denied. If you want to catch up, stop talking about what held you back. Stop announcing your wounds to the world. Heal them in silence. Let your progress be your proof. The world does not reward those who complain the loudest. It rewards those who move the most. Burn your excuses like bridges behind you, so that you have no path but forward. Turn every "I can't" into an "I must," and every someday into today. It's not your lack of time that keeps you behind. It's your tolerance of distraction. It's your willingness to entertain weakness disguised as logic. The excuse that you're not disciplined enough, that's an invitation to become disciplined. The excuse that you don't know how to begin, that's your call to learn through fire. Every excuse contains the blueprint for your comeback, but only if you're willing to reverse it and take control. Excuses thrive in environments of fear and comparison. They shrink in the presence of decisive action. The moment you take one powerful step without needing validation or applause, you've already beaten the chains of excuse. And now that your path is lit, the next requirement is to move, consistently, strategically, and with unshakable faith. This is where the man who feels behind must understand the final law. Catching up is not just about motion, it's about momentum. And momentum is not random, it is not mystical. It is the predictable result of faith combined with ruthless focus. Faith in the future, faith in yourself, and focus so fierce it eliminates everything that doesn't serve your purpose. Momentum begins with belief. Before you build a business, a body, a dream, you must build the belief that it's possible. Not a vague, shallow hope, but a burning internal certainty that says, "This will be done." Faith is not blind, it is bold. It is the quiet inner defiance that refuses to let the present define the future. When a man believes, he acts differently, he walks taller, he speaks with command, he works longer hours, he demands more of himself. Faith is the engine that powers discipline through dry seasons and fuels vision in the absence of results. But faith alone is not enough. It must be partnered with ruthless focus. Focus that slices through distraction like a blade. Focus that says no to comfort, compromise, and chaos. Focus that treats every day like a battlefield and every hour like ammunition. The man who focuses without apology is dangerous because he's no longer playing games with his potential. He's not checking his phone every 10 minutes or chasing the next dopamine hit. He's chasing legacy, and that chase creates momentum. Momentum is created by stacking small, intentional victories. One focused hour turns into 2. One disciplined day turns into a week turns into a habit, and soon the man who was behind is now leading, not because he sprinted, but because he refused to stop. Momentum makes you magnetic. It attracts opportunity, clarity, and power. It makes the impossible look inevitable, but it requires relentless intention. To build momentum, you must eliminate everything that drains your energy. That means toxic people, meaningless tasks, and thoughts that sabotage your confidence. You must treat your focus like treasure, guarding it against every thief that tries to steal your attention. The man who is willing to be misunderstood in the short term is the man who dominates in the long term. You don't need more motivation. You need more elimination. Eliminate distraction, and you will find your discipline. Eliminate excuses, and you will find your fire. Faith gives you permission to start, but focus gives you the power to continue. Together, they make a man untouchable. The world cannot stop a man who believes in his destiny and refuses to be diverted from it. His momentum becomes contagious. Others begin to notice the shift, not because he said anything, but because his results speak louder than their doubts. And the beautiful truth is this: the man who builds momentum with faith and focus no longer feels behind. He is too busy building. He is too deep in the process to measure himself against others. He stops counting the years lost and starts multiplying the minutes gained. He stops chasing what others have and starts creating what only he can bring. He is no longer defined by how far he once fell. He is defined by how hard he now climbs. Every man who catches up in life shares this turning point, the moment he stopped letting time control him and started commanding it. He wakes up not in panic but in purpose. He goes to sleep not in regret but in resolve. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He creates movement from the mess. He doesn't need a cheering crowd. His commitment is loud enough. He is so focused, so faithful to his path, that everything else fades into silence. This is the way forward. This is the path of the man who was once behind, but no longer bows to that identity. He knows that catching up is not a matter of being faster than others. It is about being more consistent than the man he was yesterday. He knows that the fire of excuses has turned to ash, and from those ashes a new path is lit, a path powered by faith so deep and focus so sharp that nothing can stop him from reclaiming what he once thought he lost. When you feel behind in life, the answer is not panic, but purpose. The journey to catch up begins with brutal self-honesty, followed by relentless discipline, the harnessing of pressure, the destruction of excuses, and the ignition of faith-driven focus. You don't need to leap forward. You need to move with intention, win the moment in front of you, and turn pressure into power. With every decision, every hour won, and every excuse burned, you regain control. You are not too late. You are just getting started. Catching up isn't about speed. It's about rising with clarity, courage, and unstoppable momentum.